Hi, I'm Jack Arnicke, and welcome to the Capital Region Real Estate Today program. We're in the height of the 2018 season, and I thought it was time to sit down and have another chat about real estate with Anthony Gucciardo. Anthony, great to see you again.
Great to see you again too, Jack. Thank you.
Congratulations on your new office here, too.
Yep.
Why an office when so much work is done either at a client's house or online?
The real estate market has changed in a sense where a lot of times, rather than meeting clients at the office to sign paperwork, you're now sending contracts and listing agreements via DocuSign. But there is a certain clientele in the community that still like to come into an office. And I've been doing billboards for years. Troy-Schenectady Road is probably one of the most traveled roads in the capital region. The traffic count is enormous, especially from a marketing standpoint. And I figured it was time to get an office. I have almost 20 agents, 10 of them being very productive, and occasionally they do want to meet clients in the office. So having a building on Troy-Schenectady Road is not only convenient, but it's great sign exposure for us.
Yeah, you basically have a billboard with a building attached.
Permanent billboard year-round, and it's a smaller building, so if the market does change, I'm never going to have to worry about being able to sustain the expense that comes with owning an office. I remember years ago, so many of the brokers had to close shop, not just real estate brokers, but businesses in general, because they leased or bought too much space, and when the market changed, they could not fill that space nor pay that payment. So I wanted to keep the office intimate to match our boutique type of brokerage appeal that we have.
Okay, how's 2018 going so far in your business?
So far good. The winter started off a little quiet. I spent some time away re-energizing myself and taking some classes and programs, and it was really a slow start, but things have picked up. You are seeing many multiple offers right now. If you price your property right, I've said this for over a dozen years now, you price the house right, the property will sell.
And with people making multiple offers now and the market really picking up, is any of that because of concern about rates?
Interest rates always have a little factor to do with that, but I think this area is so stable with our growth, and it's still very affordable. You know, I talk to people all over the country. I do broker-to-broker referrals. A $500,000 house in Latham or Colony or Saratoga is double or triple in other parts of the country, whether it be California, parts of Connecticut, parts of New Jersey. You still see very affordable housing in the South, but in the major metro areas of the Northeast and the Pacific Southwest and all over the country, the housing is not as affordable as the capital region. So I think we're only going to continue to grow here.
There are a couple of truisms in real estate: location, 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 and if you don't market your house, it's not going to sell.
That is correct.
So if you don't ask an agent how he plans to market the home, you're not really doing your due diligence, are you?
That is correct. A lot of agents, because the market has gotten better, and I'm going to make sure I maintain nothing but positivity in this show, but a lot of people get their real estate license because they think they can make a quick dollar. And you have to do more than just put a house in the multiple listing service. Now, some houses do sell quickly, I'm not going to say they don't, and some don't require an air drone or an ad in the Wall Street Journal or New York Post. But a lot of times the marketing, the simplest things you do can make the difference, such as the description, listing the property in the right school district or sub area so it gets noticed on certain websites. So marketing is really key. And I don't want to share all my ideas and visions that I have for each property, but when I meet with the clients, I let them know what I can do and how I'll stand out from my competition.
Is the market going to continue strong all of 2018?
I think the market has been maintaining its stability. You're not really seeing people having to drop their prices too much. But I also tell sellers, if you're coming into June of 2018 and your house has been listed since April and you haven't had an offer and the showings have diminished, there's probably a price issue. Primarily due to the fact that the capital region is experiencing an extremely low amount of inventory on the market. So there's a shortage right now. I mean, if you went to do a search on Realtor.com or any of the major national sites and you're looking for a 4-bedroom colonial like so many other people, you're not going to find a lot of inventory. And the inventory that is available that's been on a while is either overpriced or needs a lot of work, and the buyers are not willing to take that project on.
Interesting that you say low inventory. I've seen some national stories indicating that all over the country
Yes.
there is low housing inventory. while at the same time developers are putting their money into apartments as opposed to houses.
Yeah, you know, a lot of what I deal with in my business, I see people between the ages of 25 and 35. They're getting out of school, they have over $100,000 in debt, they're accepting a job where they're making $60,000 a year, they want a nice car, so they have a $600 a month car payment, they have a student loan debt, and they really don't qualify for a mortgage, or they don't qualify for the amount that they want because they have expensive taste. And in the world of Instagram and Facebook, everyone wants to start off at the top. So what you're seeing is rather than these millennials buying these $300,000 or $400,000 homes that they can barely afford anyway, unfortunately, they're renting luxury apartments because it allows them the granite kitchen, it allows them the stainless steel appliance package, it gives them a garage, they maybe have a recreational center. So you are seeing a boom in apartments. I own several properties myself that I rent out, and I try and maintain them to the highest standards. But there's definitely a demand for rentals, and the fact that there is a low amount of inventory tells me that this area is stable. And I think it would tell any economist the same thing. You have people who are not moving because stable employment, convenient location, great place to raise a family, great school system, not the greatest taxes because we're in New York State, but better than other parts of the country. So yes, I think the market will remain stable.
And is the huge growth of apartments going to be changing that in any way versus growth in
I
house
think that
construction?
phase is over. I don't think you're going to see too many developers putting up that many more apartments. I think there's certainly a demand, but at some point it's going to cool off because as those people who are in apartments age, some of the millennials or the younger folks, they are going to possibly want to buy a house. I think with the older folks who are retiring or downsizing or not keeping a house up here full-time because they're in Florida or Arizona, then yes, I think there's always going to be a demand for that demographic.
You were the #1 agent in 2017 in an industry that's really very cutthroat, or can be very cutthroat. What's your advice to sellers interviewing multiple realtors?
Well, on previous shows I've said that you should interview 2 or 3 agents, and I'm going to change that to 2. I think if you talk to 2 brokers, that's more than enough, because right now, sometimes when sellers talk to too many people, they get mixed signals on the market,
Right.
Mixed signals on the price, and before you know it, the consumer is left with uncertainty about what to do. So it's important to find somebody you trust, whether it be a referral, marketing or advertising, somebody who's been around for a long time, you see the signs. And it's always important that the real estate agents amongst themselves maintain a level of professionalism that includes not speaking in a negative manner about their colleagues. We all do things differently. Some of us get business different ways. But anyone who proceeds to, roll their eyes or make negative remarks, you shouldn't even consider that person as your agent, because you can compare and say what you do differently, but there should be no negative speak about other competitors.
If somebody calls Anthony Gucciardo, now you mentioned you've got 20 other realtors in your firm, 10 of whom are active. If somebody calls you, will they deal through the entire process with you, or will you send that on to another agent?
That's a great question. I get asked that a lot. I do have a company, and most sellers who will call me in the immediate Capital District will deal with me. Now, there are certain properties that I don't deal with only because I think it's important to have the right agent assigned with the right listing. For example, I don't do a lot of multifamilies. I have agents who specialize in investor relations. They have a lot more time to handle 5 or 6 sets of tenants or dealing with different municipalities regarding certificates of occupancy. So we just had a listing call come in for a family friend, relatives who live in Amsterdam. I don't personally go to Amsterdam, but I have an agent who lives in that area. She has sold many houses. I met with the sellers. I made the introduction. It's all of my marketing. So I am involved in many of the transactions. Last year we had almost 400 sales. I personally was responsible for about 200 of those. So if you call me and you want to deal with me and you're in the coverage area that I work in, then I will be coming out to your property and you will deal with me the entire time. Now, we have a photographer, we have a sign guy, we have different vendors we work with for different things related to advertising, but the communication is always going to be between myself and that client.
But if the seller is in Amsterdam and you make the introduction, is the basic sales strategy the same as
It's
you would?
the absolute same. It's all of my marketing. It's all of the structure that we use here at Gucciardo Real Estate Group. And, you know, I could go out on Route 7 right now and I could recruit 50 agents this weekend who want to be real estate agents.
I don't doubt it.
It does not mean that they're all going to be good at what they do.
Right.
So the people I have at this company, I make sure that they are offering the same level of communication that I do. And if they're not, I speak to them. And if I have to speak to them a few times, we part ways, because I want to maintain the professional image in the community that we communicate promptly, we get back to people, and we make things happen. And that's how you stand out in the real estate business.
If a house is on the market in this day and age, this season, more than 3 months, is something wrong?
Depending on the area, yes. I've said in other shows that you should have 3-month contracts. Sometimes things do take time. I mean, I get generally between 3 and 6 months. Some of the higher end homes do take up to a year to sell. You look at properties in Shaker Bay or East Hills or parts of Saratoga, they can take well over a year to sell those properties because it's a very unique buyer. But if you have a $200,000 house in Clifton Park, Latham, Boston Lake, Niskayuna, if that house isn't sold within 90 days, there's either a price issue or there is a communication issue with the agent. I have a raised ranch right now in Latham. I met with the seller. I told her her price was too high. I said, we'll try it at your price. I said, but I'd like to lower it in 30 days. Well, she doesn't want to lower it even though she said she would. And the house is sitting. So think about it. A house not selling in Latham, common sense is if it's not selling and there's been 18 showings and no offers, you would think it was the price.
Right.
Some people don't get that, and there's only so much I can do as an agent. We try and offer as much guidance, but some people, they don't want to listen, and that's not the realtor's fault.
Nope, that's just the way life is
That's
sometimes.
the way life is sometimes, yes.
In a contract, once you reach that point, there's something known as an attorney approval period.
Yes.
Number one, explain what that is, and number two, especially with multiple offers, does that cause a lot of friction?
It does. And you know, last year, I look back when we deal with 300 or 400 clients, there's always going to be about 5 or 10% of people who are not happy. And when I think of the people who are unhappy, it's usually involving a multiple offer situation. So I'm going to give the viewers watching, and I want everyone to pay very close attention to how the attorney approval process works.
Okay.
So it's Friday at 2 o'clock. You are an agent with a national firm. You submit an offer to me on my listing. I present the offer, okay? The seller says, I'm fine with it, but what about the showings that are scheduled for this weekend? So I get the offer signed. The offer goes to the attorneys, but the attorneys are not going to look at the offer because it's Friday until Monday. So what happens, and this happens a lot, on Saturday, the seller says, so should we show the house or not? And I say to the seller, well, you told this buyer that you were going to make a deal with them. Think about how you would feel. Do you want to show it for backup, or do you want to cancel all the showings? Now, half of the sellers I deal with will say, cancel the showings, let's stick with what we have. And the other half will say, well, let's keep showing it and see if we can get more. Now, as a real estate broker, and I speak on behalf of all the other real estate brokers when I say this, we have a fiduciary duty to not only listen to our client, but to get them as much as possible for their property. So now Sunday rolls around. Guess what? Another offer comes in. The offer is a little higher.
Right.
Now the buyer from Friday thinks they have a deal. I have to call their agent and say, hey, another offer came in Sunday. On Monday, the attorneys have the contract. Now buyer one thinks they're getting that house. But what many of them don't understand is in the contract they sign, there is what's known as an attorney approval process, a period. And during that period, both attorneys can accept, reject, or modify the contract. So buyer one, even though he thinks or she thinks they got a house, on Monday, that attorney, without any reason, can cancel that contract and go with the second offer. So of course, the realtors get blamed. Well, we thought we had a deal. You said you were going to stop showing it. I have to listen to what my client says. I would love to stop showing property and stick with the original offer,
Right.
if it's a strong offer. If I think the offer is a little shaky, I'm going to tell the seller to keep selling it. If they get me the deposit check right away and not wait 3 business days, well, that shows me they're serious. So the attorney approval period does cause a lot of friction. I mean friction with prominent lawyers in the area who you think would understand how contracts work. And they don't. And then they get mad at me or they get mad at their agent.
Right.
It's not our fault. We're trying to do the best for our clients. And even when you have a signed contract in the capital region, it is not a binding contract until the attorneys sign off on it. And many of them don't sign off for 3 to 5 business days, which means somebody can come in the back door and bump your offer. Even though you think you have a deal, even though you turned in the deposit check, even though you all shook hands, unfortunately it doesn't always happen in the most amicable fashion. Doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen.
And the deposit check, the actual
Get
check
refunded.
doesn't make any difference though.
Doesn't make any difference because it can get refunded, and if the attorney cancels it before there was a binding approval, the deposit goes back. Sometimes we don't even cash them right away. I mean, we're supposed to, but if a deposit check comes in on a Friday, it might not get cashed till Monday or Tuesday.
Right. Can you waive the attorney approval period? Can you waive having the attorney involved?
Most 99% of real estate deals have attorneys involved.
Right.
So it's really hard to not have an attorney involved in New York State. Other parts of the country, Florida, they do not have lawyers, they deal with the title. But no, a lot of realtors will put in other terms that no other offers considered during attorney approval period. But the attorney can squash that because he has the right to approve it or decline it without any limitation, and
Wow.
that's technically a limitation.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit of a loophole to get out and accept another offer.
What would you tell somebody right now who is with a broker and doesn't like him?
Well, I think there's always personality differences. And the important thing I always tell sellers, when I think back to my most pleasurable transactions, it's you like the people you're working with. So if you interview 2 agents, find the one that you think you relate to the best. I mean, I answer my phone at all hours. I always try and return calls as quickly as possible. Find somebody that you can confide in and who you trust. If you're not happy with your current broker, usually it's best to part ways, and you can ask for what's known as an unconditional withdrawal agreement, which totally allows you to move on from the agreement you have. And a lot of people do that.
And I would imagine for a real estate broker, if the client's not happy, why would you keep them?
Yeah, there's so many clients out there. If you want to work with like-minded people who respect your time, and vice versa, you want to respect the seller's time or the buyer's time. And you, as I said, and I will continue to say, if you work with people you like, it's like you don't have a job because it's enjoyable, and that's the important thing.
Are there any clients or potential sellers who actually should not be working with a real estate agent?
There are, and I'm going to speak in detail on this because there are some people in the community who I think have exceedingly high expectations. And I'll give you an example. When we show property, okay, or when we're setting up appointments for sellers, there's generally a window of time in which that property will be shown. So if you list your house with me and there's a showing on Sunday, and I say your house is going to be shown between 11 and 12, there is a chance that the buyer could show up a little early with the agent or a little late. It's not a perfect industry. If you're expecting a perfect result and you're a very structured person where you go to work every day and everything is done at a certain hour, real estate is not like that. It's not the most structured industry. There's a lot of people who leave lights on and doors left open. So if you're somebody that is a micromanager, or you're somebody who's going to call me because it's 11 a.m., 11:05 a.m., and you had an 11 o'clock appointment and the person isn't there yet, you're probably not a good candidate for working with a real estate agent. You probably should consider for sale by owner, because sometimes, as I've said, the real estate business is not always perfect. You're working with multiple personalities,
Right.
multiple people, and there are people who literally will call me 5 minutes after the appointment is confirmed and say they're not here, and as they're on the phone with me, the people are pulling them up. I had a lady last week, she called one of my friends, she said, I'm really not happy, the house isn't sold yet. It was on the market 14 days, and the next day it sold for full price. I said, ma'am, why are you getting so upset? I said, I told you it would take 30 to 60 days. So
Yeah.
Understand in real estate, when I was coming back from Florida, we had taken off, and about 20 minutes into the flight, it was getting a little turbulent. And I love flying, but I don't think anyone enjoys turbulence. And I was waiting for the pilot to come on and offer some reassurance because it wasn't stopping. And I said to myself, you know what? They're trained professionals. I don't need to hear from them every 5 minutes to tell them what that little bump is in the air
Right.
or what. You have to trust people, and you have to trust your real estate agent. You might not hear from them every second or every day. I generally talk to my clients once or twice a week. Some people literally will text you once or twice a day, sometimes even more. And you want to be respectful of each other's time, but just understand it's not always a perfect process, and that it is sort of a flawed industry in a sense that you're dealing with many different people, and things do happen.
Right. What's your ideal client?
My ideal client is somebody who trusts me and basically tells me that we want to go with you because of your reputation, whether it be I sold for a friend or a family member, and listens to what I say. For example, if your house is on the market for a year with another broker, and I list your property, and the offers come in at the same price, maybe $850,000, say, and you're holding out for $900, and then you want to go put more money in your house, it's not really an ideal client because
Right.
you're not getting the whole picture of how real estate works. When you have multiple offers on your house and you hear the same offer 5 times, that's probably what your house is worth. And some people, unfortunately, do hire us with unrealistic expectations and then want to blame the broker. Sometimes the market is what the market is, and somebody's only willing to pay a certain price. And it's not always the agent's fault.
Is there a point when you say, no, you're unrealistic and I'm not going to list your property?
After the contract expires, there are some people that I think it's best to part ways. I understand that people want to get as much as possible.
Sure.
I totally get that. But after a year or two of your time, there's sellers and houses and addresses I can name here in the capital region. They've been listed for 5 years. I don't think that's a realistic person. I would not want to do something for 5 years with the hopes of getting a few $1,000s, more. So that, it's important to set the price right. I've always said that.
Right.
And everything else will fall into place.
If you list a house representing the seller and then a buyer comes to you directly, is there a conflict of interest?
Some sellers will ask that. In New York State, we owe the seller confidentiality and loyalty. And I always tell sellers when I meet with them, don't tell me your bottom line. I don't want to know it. I will bring you the offer when we get it. So if a buyer does come to one of my listings, sometimes those are the smoothest transactions. And a lot of times you see the sellers getting more in those transactions because you want to have a smooth transaction. I've been in transactions where people have nickeled and dimed each other, and then the seller, out of spite, will donate $5,000 in items just not to give it to the buyer. So I always say, if you have a good transaction and you give the seller what they want, and you all meet and you feel you're getting a fair deal, that transaction is going to be a lot smoother. And you do have sellers who will leave stuff for free. If someone's moving to the south, they may not want their lawnmower or their snowblower, and they say, you know what, the buyer was good to us, they gave us what we wanted, they've been fair at the inspection, they didn't come back and ask us to treat for carpenter ants because there was one bug on the porch, and they will give them extra stuff. So that's the transactions we want to be involved in.
Do you recommend a pre-home inspection?
With older houses, yes, because there could be hidden issues, and we've talked about this on previous shows. There are some houses that were poorly ventilated years ago, so you have mold issues in the attic, and that's something you definitely want to check. So a pre-home inspection is a good idea. If the house is less than 10 years old, I don't think it's required.
Okay. What's the best place that a seller can spend money to make the house as attractive as possible prior to hooking up with an agent to
Coming
sell?
into the spring or summer, you definitely want to address curb appeal, whether it be potted flowers, neatly mowed lawn, and then your entranceway. As soon as you come up to that front door, if you see that a dog has been scratching the door or the window or the glass is dirty, that's immediately going to set the stage for, okay, what's the inside going to look like?
Right.
So as soon as you walk up, and most houses that I walk up to that are neatly manicured, the insides match. If it's June and I see Christmas lights up, chances are there's going to be some deferred maintenance inside. So you want to make the outside of your house look as neat as possible and then have the rest inside match that.
It's almost like the restaurant story of the bathroom's clean, the kitchen is clean.
Yes,
So-
correct. And if the restaurant is full, that means they have good food. So when you see a real estate broker with a lot of signs and a lot of inventory, they must know what they're doing.
How long is it taking for houses to sell in the current economy, and are you beating that average?
The national average is about 90 days. My average last year was 36, and within my company, we're a little over 36. So generally, if you list a house with us June 1st, we'd like to have you a contract by July 15th and close by the end of August. That's generally how it works. Cash deals are a little quicker, but there is still title work involved,
Right.
and the title work can be 2 or 3 weeks.
Is the summer season, the warm weather season, the best time to sell a house around here?
It's definitely a good season, but houses do sell 12 months a year. So coming into April, May, June, July, August, those are great times to list a property. Would I list a house December 19th? No, I'd wait till December 28th or 29th or right after the new year and get it on then. But the capital region from Albany down to Selkirk up to Lake George and over to Schenectady, you can sell here 12 months a year.
14 years ago, you put up your very first billboard.
Yes.
You got some criticism at that time, and now you
did.
see a lot of billboards for a lot of agents.
Yes.
Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
And the lowest form of creativity. And that's my response to that. People say that all the time. And ask yourself this question as a homeowner. If you decorated your house a certain way out front, you did a certain stone or whatever, and then 5 other neighbors did the same thing, how would you feel? I'll let the viewers answer that question. I have nothing else to say on that. I mean, anyone can take out a billboard, anyone can mimic advertising. The question is, can you deliver on what you promise? And many can't.
Is there a particular type of house that you generally sell, a certain price point you like to deal with more than another?
I consider myself to be a middle-class broker. I love getting calls for houses between $150,000 and $500,000. That is the market I deal with. I would love to sell a raised ranch, split-level colonial Cape Cod ranch home in the Capital District over, a $2 million home just because the market is so different. So I think sometimes people falsely associate me with being a higher-end realtor. That is completely incorrect. My average sale price is about $260,000. I do handle some higher-end sales, but I consider myself at the end of the day to be a raised ranch, split-level, colonial type realtor. And that's the market I love dealing with.
What's best, furniture, no furniture?
It all depends. If the house is super clean, I can sell it with furniture or without furniture. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes the older houses show better with furniture just because there's a lot of imperfections in the flooring and the moldings and the taping. So it's a case-by-case basis.
What's the hottest area in the Capital Region? What are the hottest areas?
The hottest area remains Latham, Colony, Clifton Park, Niskayuna. I mean, Niskayuna has trouble with the higher-end homes because of the taxes. But as I've said in previous shows, Niskayuna has some great property. But Latham, Loudonville, Colony, still very strong markets.
And I'm surprised you didn't say Saratoga.
Saratoga is, and we go up to Saratoga. It's a definitely higher dollar sales up there, but you still see more volume down here.
Interesting.
In Albany County.
Okay. Time is just about out. Any concluding remarks?
I would like to thank the Capital Region for your continued support. This is our 16th year, my 16th year as a broker. Your kind emails, and I see a lot of people in the community who come up to me, and I'm greatly appreciative of your support. And if you're thinking of buying or selling real estate, we would love to help you.
Good. Nice chatting with you
Thank
again,
you
Anthony.
again.
Thank
Nice
you.
to see you as well.
That concludes another edition of Capital Region Real Estate Today. I'm Jack Arneke. Have yourself a wonderful day.